Hello everyone, welcome to Kalam's answer writing session. How are you all? I hope you all are doing well. So today I have another question for us to discuss. So tomorrow is Christmas, by the way. It is 25th of December, and I have a little surprise planned out for you all. It is going to be obviously an academic surprise. We will see what it is towards the end. But today we will jump into the question. The question is on WTO's appellate body. Why has it been asked? It has been asked because it was recently in news. WTO's appellate body is supposed to have 7 members. Of these 7 members, at least 3 members are required to preside on a case to solve disputes. Okay, at least 3 member का panel की ज़रूरत है. But the point is, WTO has appellate body has been having vacancies for quite some time. So there were only 3 people for most of the for the past few months, and of these 3 people, around 2 people retired. So there is only one person now. Whatever appointments are being made, they are being vetoed by US because US feels that the WTO's appellate body is against the interests of US trade. Okay, so because of these vetoes, this body is not being able to fill itself. So this body is basically in shambles at the moment. So in this particular question, in this particular context, a question has been framed. Okay, how to answer this question? But then I want to tell you all something. If you all are sitting down to write an answer for this question by yourself, okay, you will have trouble doing so because this is one of the bouncer questions of UPSC. If every time we write UPSC, out of the 20 questions we handle, around 1 or 2 questions are going to be bouncers. Like for example, one of the years I wrote the exam, there was a question on UN ECOSOC. I had very less content about that particular topic. Also, there was a question on allelopathy some year. Nobody knew what it was. So these questions are expected in the exam, and even whether you like it or not, these questions are going to be there. So we have to tweak our mind. We have to evolve and rise to the situation and try and answer the question with whatever content we have. Okay. So that is what it is. Don't worry if you do not get enough points when you write the answer out by yourself, until and unless you're a senior player with about 5 to 6 mains in your bag and a couple of interviews like me. It is going to be really difficult to write the answer, which is fine. Okay, so I'll tell you all how to answer this question now. So I'll basically read out the question for you all. The fall of the WTO's World Trade Organization's appellate body is an opportunity to rectify issues with the present system. Examine. So basically it is telling you that this body is not doing well, the appellate body is not performing well, it has fallen, and in this particular context you have to create an opportunity to rectify the issues. What it is trying to say, that we have to utilize this situation in order to rectify the issues. And let us have an intuition about what it is. So there is a situation of crisis, and then you have to look at it as an opportunity. If you look at the history, for example, in 1991 we had a situation of crisis called the balance of payment crisis, and we looked at it as an opportunity and brought in a vast changing reform called the LPG reforms. So similarly, in 2004 we had tsunami. It is basically a disaster, a crisis. In literally and metaphorically speaking, it was a crisis, and this crisis was seen as an opportunity to rectify the situation by forming the act called National Disaster Management Act, which has come with a plethora of institutions like National Disaster Management Authority, National Disaster Management Force, and so on. So all these things are there. So what it is trying to say is that an opportunity, a crisis is also an opportunity, and the crisis in the WTO's appellate body at the moment should be seen as an opportunity, and then we have to rectify the situation. Okay, so that is what it is. I'll quickly write down the subheadings. So it is asking us to rectify the situation. So basically I definitely have to write the measures or the way forward. So that much I have to do. So what else can be done? It says that the fall of WTO's appellate body is an opportunity. So how about we establish the fall? By this we'll be able to mimic the question. Fall of appellate body, WTO's appellate body. So basically I'll start off my answer with an introduction and then move to the conclusion, and then what is going to be the skeleton of my answer. I'm going to spend some time on telling you telling the examiner how the fall of this appellate body has taken place, and then I'm going to give measures. So how do we enrich this question? These two things seem to be very important for our answer. So how do we enrich this question? What other subheadings can we create? Because there is possibility to create one other subheading, which is the impact of such fall. How is it going to affect the world trade, the globalization, that is the forces of globalization that are at work? How is it going to affect these things? Once we tell them the impact, we can easily move forward and tell them what the measures are, because it is going to be an organic flow. Sir, the WTO's appellate body is not doing well. Because of this, so and so impact is going to be created on the world as such, and hence we have to take certain measures. Okay, so that is how we create a flow between our subheadings, and most of the focus is going to be on the measures and the fall. Okay, that part is understood. How do we start the introduction? We know that the conclusion is going to be a 1 or 2 line conclusion because it is a 10 marker. So how do we start an introduction? An introduction in this particular context could be to summarize the body as such. So you could talk about what the WTO's appellate body does. So we'll start with the definitional form of starting an answer. That is one way. Or you could talk about the current affairs issue by saying that USA is creating so and so problems in the WTO's appellate body's appointments, which is creating some kind of disruptment in the working of the body. So these are the ways in which we can start an answer. So basically we evolved a structure or the skeleton for our answer. Now we will move forward to evaluate a sample answer, and wherever it is required for me to explain the points that have been written, I will do that. I will do the necessary, the needful. Okay, so let's see what he has done. WTO has the overall goal of promoting international trade and spur development. Okay, its appellate body is a standing body of 7 members who hear appeals on the judgments passed by WTO in trade disputes. This is a good introduction. I'll tell you why. He directly did not jump into WTO's appellate body. He started out by warming up the introduction by talking about what WTO does. I want you to know that all of us know these points. The key is to write this point. The key is to write the content which we have in order to beautifully make it fit in the answer. Okay, we could have directly started out with the appellate body, but by starting from here, he's basically filling the space, because in bouncer questions it is difficult to fill space. He is basically filling the space and he is doing it well. So because it is a bouncer question, I am happy that he has written 5 lines, because because in such questions, even if you write 5 or 6 lines of introduction which is relevant, which is easy to understand, it is going to do good to you. Keep that in mind. But in questions where there is lots of content in your hand, where there is lots of innovation and creativity you could put in your answer, it is not wise to spend too much time on your introduction, too much time or space on your introduction. In those questions where there is lots of content, you directly start off with the introduction with 1 or 2 lines and immediately jump into the body of the answer, because you have lots of subheadings to address. But in this particular case, even if we have the subheadings, we have less points because this is a bouncer question. So by spending 5 or 6 lines, he did a good thing. That is what I feel. Now we move forward. Fall of WTO's appellate body. So he is basically addressing the fall. How did this body become to be in such a dismal state that it is in now? The strength of the panel to hear disputes must be at least 3. Currently there is just 1 person. This is a fact. Good. This is basically a current affair article. This is the current affairs based on which we frame the question. And then he says US has vetoed all future appointments citing bias by the appellate body. Good. So far this is a technical point. I'm impressed. Okay, I know that he knows something about WTO's appellate body issue. Then he says WTO's appellate body has not been as successful as GATT in resolving disputes. So that is also one of the reasons why people have lost faith in this body, and the body is not doing well. Okay, understood. Customized solutions like arbitration have evolved on the side by countries like EU. Oh, So basically what he's trying to say, that instead of going to WTO's appellate body, countries by themselves are forming blocks by which they are using the method of arbitration, mediation, conciliation, which is different from the WTO's appellate body mechanism, to solve the problem informally. So that is also decreasing the legitimacy of the WTO's appellate body. Okay, overall standing of the body has reduced. I think this is a generic point that he has written, so I think he didn't want to start with a new subheading in this small space, so I think he added this extra point. That is what I feel. Yeah, that seems to be the case, because immediately he has moved on to a next subheading. So this is a trick that I want you all to remember. If you all have to start a new subheading, at least make sure that under the new subheading you have at least 1 or 2 points. You don't just put up a heading here and start writing points on the next page. That is not good. That is not a good way of presenting your answer. At least write 2 points under your subheading if you are starting a subheading somewhere in your answer. Okay, so let's see what the impact is. What have we seen so far? We have seen that the WTO's appellate body has not been performing well. Good. Now what is the impact? Crisis in dispute resolution process might endanger the institution as a whole. This seems to be an extreme statement, but it is fine. Possibility of increasing trade and tariff wars. This is a good point. If the WTO's appellate body is not doing well, then the countries are free to do whatever they want, because there is no check on them, so the tariff wars will increase. So in addition to that is that rising protectionism. Good. So this could basically be 2A. Okay. The body, since its inception in 1995, ruled around 350 judgments. Its absence might put legitimacy of WTO judgments in precarity. This seems to be a vague statement, but this is a fact. This is an important fact. So what he's trying to say is that, see, this body came up in 1995. Since then, around 500 cases have been taken up to WTO's appellate body, and it has ruled successfully in 350 judgments. And 350 judgments, which is not a mean thing. I mean, it is a very big achievement in a manner of speaking. So if a body like that is absent for some time, so all the WTO judgments, where will they go for review? Okay, how will they get resolved? If the judgment is not in favor of a particular country and that particular country wants to question the judgment, where will it question? Because there is no appellate body to which it could go to question the judgment, right? So so it says that the WTO judgments would put it in precarity. This is a very good point. It sounded vague in the beginning, but this is a very good point, but this could have been explained better. Lucidity is more important when you write technical points, because you can't test the patience of the examiner. You have to write things as simplistically as possible. Okay, explain better. Okay, so he has talked about the impact. Now I have to move forward. Way forward is also an opportunity to rectify issues. So what I see here is that he could have written way forward, but he also used this because he is mimicking the nature of the question. I want you to keep that in mind. Whenever you have the opportunity to take lines directly from the question and put them as your subheading, please do it. Okay, by all means do it. So democratize the institution. You have to democratize the institution. By democratizing, what do you mean? Giving those countries more power which they didn't have before. So basically you have to democratize the power balance in the institution. Appointment may be done by voting rather than consensus, because it is being done by consensus at the moment. Even if one country vetoes, the appointment is not able to be fulfilled. So USA is vetoing the appointment, and hence the appointment is not being done. But if the appointment were to be done by voting, vacancies will be filled. Okay, so that is an important point. Provide major role for developing countries in the working of WTO to gather legitimacy. Okay, so that is basically 1A, because they both more or less mean the same thing. So if these developing countries have more power in WTO, what happens is these people have lots of population, so these people have lots of representation in WTO. So these people will have faith in the institution because they feel themselves to be a stakeholder in that particular institution. Once that happens, they will feel that WTO is a legitimate body. Okay, adoption of arbitration, mediation, conciliation within WTO itself. Okay, so basically what it's saying is that adoption of arbitration, mediation, conciliation within the framework of WTO itself. So what we just talked about is the fact that So the next point basically tells us that the adoption of arbitration, mediation and conciliation should be done within the WTO framework itself. So what is happening at the moment, because people are not having enough faith in the WTO's appellate body, they are trying to mediate themselves on in informal lines side by side. Instead of doing that, if WTO itself adopts this procedure, it is going to democratize it is going to basically legitimize the institution. One thing, I think this provision in some manner is already present in WTO, by the way, but that is fine. That is fine. The thought is important. The thought that he is trying to incorporate new methods into WTO's appellate body or the structure of WTO in order to democratize the institution, in order to legitimize the institution, is more relevant. Okay, so whether this provision is already there in WTO is not of much importance, because now I know that the student is thinking in the right lines. So that is how you have to gauge these points. The next point is adopting provisions from the GATT dispute redressal mechanism, which was more successful. So basically we were saying that GATT's dispute resolution was much better than WTO's appellate body resolution mechanism. So you have to take in those provisions which have made that model successful and put them in this particular model. Good. So a group of 17 was formed to rectify issues in WTO and its appellate body. They must take this opportunity to democratize WTO as well as trade and globalization. Okay, so basically he didn't respect the contours of the question here. That is a bad thing, but then the conclusion seems to be good, because he's basically telling you a dense point. He's telling you that a group of 17, G17, has been formed. This group is trying to bring about reforms in this particular institution as well as the appellate body. So basically this group can create an enabling environment for the reforms to happen. So overall, what has he established? He has established that the WTO is basically going through a problem and going through a set of problems, and then he said that this is going to create a negative impact in the world scenario, and then he moved forward to talk about the ways in which he can rectify the situation. Good. So overall, this answer is very satisfactory. I've seen a good number of technical points here. It might not be possible for a beginner to have these points in his arsenal when he starts out to write an answer, but that is fine. The game is to understand what has been taught today, make a short notes of less than 1/4 of A4 page, and keep revising these notes once in every weekend, because that will help you to stay close to the pattern of answer writing, and so that it becomes easy for you between prelims and mains. Okay, so the discussion for the day is over. Yes, I remember that there seems to be a surprise, so I'll tell you what the surprise is. So we've taken your inputs regarding the discussion of GS4 and GS1. Like I said before, I've already discussed one GS1 question before. So tomorrow I'm going to extend this discussion and take this. I have taken this input from one of the students that has written a mail or a comment to us. So the input is that we're going to discuss a GS4 case study. Okay, and that is what we're going to do tomorrow. Before we directly move into creating our own questions, why not just take up a question from UPSC? So this was a question from previous year question, so this is very relevant for the discussion. So this is going to be the discussion for tomorrow. So what is this question? The question says you are heading the rescue operation. Okay, so there seems to be some kind of disaster. Yes, there has been a natural calamity. Thousands of people are rendered homeless, deprived of food and drinking water and other basic amenities. So this is basically a situation of crisis. Rescue work has been disrupted by heavy rainfall and damage to supply routes. So basically these people were stranded, they didn't have food, they were homeless, but these people are not able to survive properly because basic supplies are not being followed up, because the supply routes were disrupted. The local people are seething with anger, obviously, because the situation is, this is a situation in which they feel that the state is not helping them. So they are in anger, they are in lots of anger because of delay in the limited rescue operations. Okay, so when your team reaches, so I'm supposedly leading this rescue operation. When I reach the place, one of my team members gets assaulted by the people there, because they are very angry because of the delayed nature in which we are providing them with relief. So one of your team members is even severely injured. Faced with this crisis, some team members plead with you to call off the operation. So once the person, once somebody in my team has been injured, everybody else is scared, so they don't want to carry out the rescue operation. So how do I handle the situation in such trying circumstances? What will be your response? Examine the qualities of a public servant which will be required to manage the situation. Okay, so so this is basically the case that we have to discuss tomorrow. I want you all to think about it, try and answer, try and build a framework in your own mind, and let's just see if my framework matches with your framework. And then what you have to do, you have to merge these two frameworks and come up with a better one. Okay, it's all about getting better and making those incremental changes in our education, in our life, and the way we behave. Okay, so the discussion for the day is over. I'll meet you all tomorrow with the case study. Merry Christmas. Thank you.